What's up, everyone? We are revisiting Hertz Drums. So they actually have released Hertz Drums version 2. You may remember me looking at this about a year and a half ago, actually, when it was first released. Hertz Drums are released, or were created by Hertz Recording Studio. Yes, that legendary Hertz Recording Studio that did Vader, Behemoth, Hate, and Decapitated. So very well known, very experienced, very pro level guys. And actually, I had the opportunity to kind of get behind the scenes when I was working at Hertz there a couple months back of the process of what they do to, for example, create all their drum packs, how they go through the GUI design, and I was able to give them direct feedback in person about my experience using the plugin and things that I would have liked to see, or things that might have been easier, for my purposes. So we're gonna go over what has changed, but first and foremost, does it sound good? So let's have a quick listen. So yeah, as you can hear, it obviously sounds amazing. I picked that part of the song a little bit because there's a lot of cymbal work going on. One of the things that I sort of had a criticism about with the first version of Hertz Drums were kind of the cymbals. Now, it's 50% my fault because I was not using this instrument correctly. There's a couple things I really want to point out about this instrument, obviously on top of the updates that they've made. So the very first update that I really want to talk about is the GUI. They have restructured the GUI to give a little bit more room to things that you should be looking at while decluttering it. You may remember that it used to look like this, where this panel was always open all the time, and it was all of these modules here, not these are new, were just stuck in one little pane here, and you couldn't hide it, you really couldn't do anything with it. And one of the things that's really the case is, for example, this ADSR, it's going to be really rare if you're going to use that. I've never used it on this library. The ADSR is really cool to use, for example, if you have a cymbal sample that just rings out for a really long time. You can change the decay of that, so you could change it in the instrument to cut the ringing out to maybe 2 or 3 seconds so that it doesn't just go on forever in the mix. It's a very powerful tool, but I was just never using it. And so that's something that you can choose to hide if you don't care to see it or not, which allows you to see more of the GUI here. The second thing that they did, which I particularly was like, guys, you have to do this, because at that time I was working on a 4K monitor and the original GUI size was like this. Now, those guys typically work on 1080p, like the monitor that they work on with the Neve Genesis is 1080p resolution. So this obviously was gigantic on a 1080p resolution. But for bigger resolutions, it was a huge pain in the ass, because I was literally coming in like this, trying to see what I was trying to do, especially because we had all these panels here and they were much smaller in the first version. Now you can come up here, you can adjust the magnification, and this is perfect. So I typically use it at 125% because I'm on a 1440p monitor at the moment. So for 4K, this is going to be awesome. The graphics obviously scale with the different resolution magnification. Looks amazing. Speaking of the graphics, by the way, this is the actual live room. This is literally the live room, and this is actually the position where they generally put the drums in the live room. That door leads out in the main hall, and then if you take a left, the control room is opposite of this wall, and that's actually where I'm going back to Hertz in July and August to do 2 recording sessions. So it's really kind of neat to see that they did a 3D rendering of the room, and boop, there are the actual drums in the position that they would be in the studio. So that's pretty cool. So if you didn't actually know that, that's actually the actual live room at Hertz Recording Studio. Pretty neat. So these panels that go back and forth now, they changed them a little bit. So you can just click here to open and close them. Fantastic idea. A lot of times you may not even need these, or you're going to want to do something and then, hide it. This is great. So you have the same things that you would have had here before, the 3 different microphones, which usually means 3 different timbres or 3 different tones of the drum. You can change the direct sub effects or overhead levels of each drum and the phase, and then change the ambience, aka more room or reverb sound. And you can do that with every single drum. So if I click a drum here, you see it gets selected on the mixer, and I can change every single attribute over here on the panel. Awesome. A lot of customizability here. Very easy to use. On this particular panel, they added a couple of extra things. So we have the velocity and humanize panels here. So these are built-in humanized panels that you can use in an effort to make the drums sound more realistic. Now again, we're going to go back to that point about the cymbals here in just a second. But this is a great first step to humanize the drums. You can humanize based on pitch and velocity. Now, I've experimented with this a little bit. I tend to keep the levels a little bit low on the lower side and do a lot more of the humanization with the velocity. For me, it just works out best, but you have the option here to be a bit more automatic with it, especially with the velocities. And as you can expect, everything can be changed on a shell basis. So, you can go through here and change every single one. It's like make the velocity, like here is 1, you can make this 1, and then, the snare can be at 0, for example. All the control that you would want for every single drum shell and piece of the kit. Lots of controls, very amazing. You can also change the tuning, which is something that's very important if you want to use Hertz drums, for example, with a live kit, where you're going to keep the overhead tracks, but you're going to use the shells from Hertz drums. You can change the tuning to match the shell, the original tuning of the shell and the overheads. That's a great trick. You should do that so that everything blends well together and it sounds more organic. And it's not so obvious that you have like a sampled shell being mixed into a different snare tune, a snare that's tuned differently in the overheads, for example. All right. So I really like that you can hide these now, because generally most of the time you're really not gonna need to see them. All right. That leaves the mixer to always be open full scale here, and the mixer is exactly what you would want. This really is unchanged. All the kits go to a group: the snare, the toms, the hi-hat, the spots, and the cymbals. This is great because you can do level mixing already in the plugin before it goes into the DAW, and then in the DAW you can do more fine-tuned tweaking and things like this. A couple things to know about this, okay? I have all the panning done in the plugin itself. Now, if you click this F button, that means all the mics are going to follow this balance setting. So that means when I click F here and I change the panning, it's going to change the panning in all the other microphones that are included in the kit, including the overheads and the rooms and then the reverb. This is very important. I actually didn't know about this function until Slavik showed it to me. He's like, no, it was Wojtek that showed it to me. He says, click the F, and then the shell will move in the space in all the microphones, and it'll help keep things, more realistic and glued sounding. Right? You can choose to not do that. You can put everything down the center and then do it in the DAW if you wish, but here it's just easier to do it. I set it, click F, and forget about it. So everything is set to F here to following all the microphones, and then I put the cymbals and shells where I want them and things like this. And then here I can bring the kicks down or the toms, and kind of do already some basic level matching right here in the plugin before it goes into the DAW. Same thing here, everything bounces out to the overheads, the rooms, and the reverb here. So in essence, if you didn't want to multi-out this, which you would do using, like in Cubase anyway, would come down here and click this button and multi-out it, which I've done for this track. You could just do a stereo track, pump it out to stereo, and you can get really great results without needing to do a lot of work. Just put like a overall compressor on the drums bus. This is the drums bus here. Yeah, I just have stock plugins actually and a free plugin. Sounds amazing. Okay, so that's the GUI here, and then you have groups and left-right swap. You can change the panning, left-right swap at one click of the button. That's awesome. All right. Last thing I want to talk about here, you see these pads here. Now, one thing that blew my mind again was when I was discussing how I used Hertz drums with the Wojtek. I was like, yeah, I like the drums, but then sometimes, I'll still load trigger, put like a one shot in there. And he's like, why? I was like, well, just because I'll blend it in, you know what I mean? He's like, you can do that right in Hertz. And I was like, what? In the old version of Hertz, they had a tambourine and I forget what the other instrument they had, but they had two a cowbell. They had two auxiliary percussion instruments. He's like, yeah, just click on the tambourine, for example. Okay, in this case, it's a pad, which I have here. You can go to the library sample button here, click on the thing, and then you can just go right here to sampler, and you can load all the samples that you want, up to 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 articulations. I was like, you're shitting me. So you have 8 articulation groups, I'm sorry. So I actually don't need trigger anymore, because what I can do is I can load a one-shot sample like I've done into here, right into this pad, and then I can go to the articulations MIDI mapping here. Here's pad 5, and I can just set B0 and C1, which are the kick notes for this instrument. I can set the pad to read those instruments, which automatically reads both of these kick hits. So when I click on the kick, you can see the pad is playing. This is awesome. It makes the workflow a lot easier, and all I got to do now is come into the mixer, click on the pad, and I can set the level to exactly where I want it to be. Also, I can mute it, solo it right in here, so without the pad, the kicks don't have as much attack, what I'm looking for, so I can go here, put the trigger back in. Now I have a little bit more of that little click on there. I'm using Cola's typewriter click from his drum shots pack from Drumforge. I love using that click sound, and I just blend it in very, very subtly into the kick here to just get a little click on top of it. And you can do that with the snare. You could do anywhere on the kit. So any pieces of this kit can be turned into a sample. So I could come in here and be like, I'm not using this floor tom, or I want to use a different floor tom, and I can just load in different samples if I want. Come up here to library sampler, click on it, click here, click on sampler, bam. Now I can load anything that I want from my own library right into here, and I don't have to worry about loading an extra plugin, plugging in an effects track, managing 2 different faders in 2 different locations. Everything is just in one location, and that makes it so much easier and faster to work. Because to be honest with you guys, I've been using Hertz drums pretty much on everything for the last year, definitely for the last year, maybe even the last year and a half. Almost every single demo that I've done, for either myself or for a song or for a review, I've used Hertz drums. I really love the way these drums sound, and they're just awesome. Now, the drum pack that I'm using here, you can see down here, is called Metal Unlimited. That's this block right here. The reason I'm using Metal Unlimited is because these are completely just raw. The way that Wojtek explained it to me, he said that they just set up the drums, and they sampled all the drums straight into the board, print, done. No extra compression, no extra EQ, nothing. How the drum sounds is how it was put into the pack. And in the Metal Unlimited pack, there's a lot of presets here, including a snap kit, which is just the transient, which you can add more transient information to dull toms, especially real toms. If like the drummer kind of buzzed them, I've talked about buzzing the toms where there's not a lot of note articulation. You can actually make MIDI notes and then just select the snap kit, and it's just like clicks, and it's just a transient of a tom or a snare or a kick, and it gives extra attack to your natural drums to help them cut through the mix a lot more. That is just fantastic. All right, now obviously they have a lot of other packs here. I use the Metal Unlimited one, like I said, because they're raw, and I just have more ability to shape the drums to how I want them to sound for my music. But there's a ton of different packs in here. Actually, what I'll do is I'll load another instance of this real quick. All right, here we go. So this is a brand new instance of Hertz drums. As you can see, they took the time to create different colors for the different shells and different drum types. This one loads funk rock automatically. So it's already pre-processed to a degree, and you just need to fit it into the mix. That's the other thing that I was able to see. So the Grand Rock Pack, I actually got to watch Slavik go through this process where he's studying the music. He puts them in like RX. He's literally studying the harmonics, studying the tuning, the amount of reverb that should go into everything. And so you have born. I don't even know what these are. Born to Drum. So here's just a preset. No idea what it sounds like. So that sounds like an amazing starting point if you're doing like a rock and roll type stuff. The very excited snare drum. Let's see, drum. I don't even know. And they're named after certain songs or bands. I don't even know half of these because I don't know. But I mean, like Smells Like a Rock Spirit. We should kind of have an idea of what that's supposed to sound like. Super hype. Awesome. You guys might like the Fame and Fury pack, which I don't know if this is the Gent pack. Maybe it is. But this one's definitely hyped. Look at that snare. So you have a ridiculous amount of packs here where they have doubled, actually I would say tripled the amount of presets that they've created from the original version that I looked at a year and a half ago. The packs that I particularly use are the white pack, which is more of like the metal pack, and the metal unlimited pack, which I said is completely raw. But there are signature packs in here from Dare, from Dimmu Borgir, some presets that I've created, and red pack. Go on the website and listen to the examples to find the pack that would work best for you. But these are pretty much mix ready. And when I say mix ready, I mean there's no problems that you need to fix in them. All you'll need to do is probably fader mix them, and maybe do some EQ to shape them to fit into whatever the mix that you're doing. So I call it relative EQ. So it's relative EQ based on other things that are happening in the mix. So like you might have to notch out some information from the kick to help the kick or the bass guitar to come through a little bit more, things like this. But these are great sounding drums. I've literally been using nothing else for the last year and a half. It's pretty ridiculous, right? While I still have this open, let's actually pick one of the signature presets here. All right, so as you can see, the signature presets are a combination of different packs and different drums from different. I wouldn't say presets from different packs. The other thing here, if you go to the groups, so we picked Dade's preset, but I want to point you to something here. So you have different styles and signatures and tempos, right? One of the things where other libraries kind of drop the ball on is going to be grooves that are not in 4/4. So there's a lot of grooves in 4/4 or 6/8 and things like that in Easy Drummer and TuneTrack, for example. But I have a really weird tendency to write riffs in 7/4, 5/4, and some of these odd signature times where there's very few grooves or things like that that might be usable. But if you come over here to styles, there are a ton of different grooves that you can choose from. So from funk, new metal, rock, not 4/4, which means not 4/4. And so you have different signature styles that you can experiment with. Now 78, I don't know how this is going to sound. It's a little bit too fast because I have 115 here. Let's go to 143. There you go. So that kind of stuff, if you guys are into that more gent proggy type of style, you're definitely going to enjoy this. Go to 110 here. These grooves are also amazing to study from because you can look at how a real drummer is going between the different meter symbols. The meter symbols are hi-hat or your ride, and you can learn how to program them so you can get these grooves with the ghost notes in your music. So I've definitely looked at these. So the Not 4x4 is a great group pack to have. If you've got Hertz Drums, definitely pick that out. So we picked the Dade preset, so let's look at some of the groups that Dade played. So let's just pick a random beat here. Nice. So the way that I understand it, pretty much from left to right, I believe things get more complicated or more busy. I don't remember. Yes. Great, and then we have some tom fills, snares. Awesome. So those are actually played by Dade himself at Hertz Studio, which is pretty neat. So there's a lot of grooves that you can go through here. Just all you have to do, find the one you like, click and drag it into the DAW, and you're done. So that's something I wanted to point out. Didn't want to forget discussing that. I generally don't use a lot of groups because I write my own stuff in most of the time. However, I have definitely experimented with groups before, in particular the Not 4x4, just to see what was done here, because that is very unique. I can't say that there are a ton of libraries that have groups for anything other than 4/4 time signature. So really cool. Let's get back to what I was talking about though with the cymbals way back in the beginning of the video. One of the critiques that I had when I first looked at this instrument was that the cymbals felt a little bit washy, and then there was a glitch with the hi-hat, which has been fixed months ago. It's not an issue anymore. But the issue was kind of my fault. Let me show you what I mean. So if I open up the MIDI here, you're going to notice something right away. One thing that the philosophy behind sampling these drums is different than the other drum libraries. Now, that's nothing new. Every drum library tends to do things their own way. But one thing that I was unaware of, and I should have asked beforehand, these were the velocity layers. Now, since then, I think there's a velocity PDF showing you recommended layers based on note lengths or BPM. So if you notice here, when I'm playing just a very slow groove here, most of the hits are around 100. Okay, 100 was the baseline normal solid drum hit for them. So actually, if you go above 100, it's kind of diminishing returns. All of the realism in this and how the drum reacts and the tone of the drum is really from 100 and below. So one of my mistakes was not setting the velocities in the correct level for the cymbals. Now, the cymbals generally want to live around 115, and then you can change the velocity based on, you know, how fast something is going, or if you really want to make something realistic. But if you look at this, these are all living around 115 to 120 range. While all of the shells, in particular, the blast beats are really low, like 85 and lower. All right, so that's particularly the trick to working with the Hertz Drums library. Keep your cymbals about 115-ish. Keep your shells like 100 and below, including toms. And that was one of the mistakes that I made. Now, one thing that I also really like about this library is they've separated, actually I'll show you here, they've separated the articulations. So the snare has so you have the center of the snare, right? They have separated where the snare's been hit in different locations. Because every time you hit a snare, this is why someone always says, you know, drummers, they need to hit the drum directly in the center as hard as they can. Because that's what makes the drum sound best and open up, especially on toms. So if you've ever heard like ding gong bing bong bing bong gong gong bing bong bong, that's the drummer literally, the stick is hitting the snare drum at a different point every single time. So you get that ding 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 dong ding 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 type of sound, and it's really annoying. It's not consistent sounding, right? So you can put that in here. So you have a snare center right and a snare center left. Now when you're programming blast beats, this makes blast beats sound very realistic. Watch. I can bring this down even more because it sounds a little bit weird in solo. what you generally want to do is you want to have your music playing, and you can set the basic velocities to where it's working with the music. So if I unmute this and play it with the song, it sounds very realistic, right? We go to the roll here. Sounds fantastic. The hi-hat is just kicking away up there. And we get into the more overdrive. I don't think you guys have heard this one yet, but get into the more overdrive blast beat, which is even faster. The velocities are even lower. Right? And that sounds realistic. That is what you would expect to hear a drummer, how they would play it. If I solo it, so what I'm doing is I am alternating, going from center right to center left by a little bit. And I'm also decreasing the left hit, so not the strong stroke, down by like 1 or 2 velocity strokes. So you can see here we have really an alternating velocity section. I also randomized the velocities here. So when you listen to this, you don't get that machine gun effect. And in the mix, obviously, even if I turn it up a little, so the tone of the drum is maintained the way that it should be, right? So the velocity settings are very important in this drum library, which makes them sound ultra realistic, and that's why I love using this library. I used it on so many clients already; it's ridiculous. Writing them in is easy. Tuning them to the song is easy. Mixing them is even easier. Now, I mentioned that these are raw drums, but there's very little work still needs to be done. Like, I didn't even use a compressor on each individual track, because once I put the drum bus compressor on here, everything came out the way that it was supposed to. And so I'm just doing very basic EQ on things that you would expect to see, taking out low, mid, honks, resonances, making sure that the toms are full bodied, have enough attack on the top end. And in this particular case, they did with the kit that I'm using. Just real basic EQ going through here. Same thing with the cymbals, just all basic stuff. And then going into a drums bus with some minor, I didn't even do EQ here. Wow, okay. Clipping, free plugin, and then the compressor, which is a stock Cubase plugin. And the drums just come right out. They sound really nice. I've been using these drums for everything, guys. They're my favorite. Pretty much, first choice. Always the first choice for everything that I decide to do. All right. So definitely, if you don't have these drums, they are improving all the time. You should consider picking it up. You can get the sampler in the white pack. Is a great starting point. I would personally prefer to get the metal limited pack plus the sampler. And yeah, so there's a link down below in the description. It's a affiliate link. Wojtek and Sławek didn't specifically ask me for this video. I just wanted to make an update video showing Hertz Drums 2 has been released. All the changes, all the improvements. And guys, I mean, I've talked about Hertz Drums for months. I've told you about it already. It's been on every single almost every single video that I've done in the last year and a half. So if you're looking for an alternative created by a top-level world-class studio by two guys who know exactly what the hell they're doing when it comes to recording drums. I mean, they worked on Vader, Behemoth, 8, Decapitated for a reason, guys. These guys know what they're doing, and Wojtek uses this on all the stuff that he works on. So it's kind of funny. They created the instrument pretty much so they can make their productions easier to do. So They use it. I use it. It's kind of a sleeper plugin right now because everyone's kind of hung up on, you know, Superior Drummer and things like this. I would prefer to use this over Superior Drummer any day. It's simpler to use. It's less annoying. They're easier to get the drums sounding good than the Superior Drummer is, at least for me, in my opinion. And yeah, so definitely check them out if you're if you're looking for different, unique drum sounds created by actual recording professionals who use it themselves in their own stuff. Definitely look at getting this. You're not going to be disappointed. I would personally recommend you either get the white pack or the metal limited pack. The white, what I mean is just the white pack is a bit more well-rounded for metal. Metal limited pack is actually raw. You can do whatever you want with that. These other ones are going to be genre dependent. Like Fame and Fury is more like new metal, maybe even gent a little bit. Grand Rock is actually going to be like your rock and roll or your 90s alternative rock. Your Reg pack seems to be, again, more alternative drums here. I don't know. They have a lot of metal stuff here. Maybe I should look at the Reg pack a little bit more. What I personally would recommend Metal Unlimited or White Pack to get started, and from there go go on there for whatever you would need. As far as the grooves are concerned, just get the grooves. You know, get the grooves, play with them. They're very affordable, and for what you're getting here, Hertz Drums and all the packs, ultra affordable, and they're also very responsive to emails. If you have an issue with an email, they'll get to you pretty quick. You know, many a times I've seen Wojtek going through the email chain, helping people out. He's very tuned in what people are doing with his instrument and how they would wish for the instrument to be improved. So, I mean, if you find a bug or you have a feature request, you know, Hertz Instruments are still pretty small company to where you're gonna literally directly speak to who's creating this. So, pretty good chance that if the idea is pretty good, they might like it and they could implement it. So, you know, there's that. Anyway, that's the end of the video, guys. Link down below. It is an affiliate link. Just want to let you know. But yeah, check them out. These are my favorite drums to use all the time. And it's going to take a lot for that to change. All right. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. See you in the next one.